Rockford Soul for Classic Rocks, 96.7 The Eagle. Joining me, special guest, guitar player Rich Robinson. Rich, how you doing today?
Hey, man, how are you? I'm good.
Doing solo stuff for a while, and now you've got a current project called the Magpie Salute. What made you decide it was time to kind of go into the band thing?
It just kind of happened. You know, in 2016, I was touring on my own, my last solo record, which was called Flux, and this opportunity for a show came up in Woodstock, New York, at a studio where they invite people in to, kind of watch you record a live record, basically. And it's small; it's like only 100 people. And the one that I did was 3 days over Friday, Saturday, Sunday, a whole weekend. And I wanted to sort of add something different to the mix, and so. You know, the more I tour, the older I get, the more I realize what a gift it is to play with people that you have that connection to musically, you know. And Mark Ford and I always had this element, you know, in the Crows and then now in Magpie, but where you just couldn't explain it. Every time we'd play together, there was something greater than the two of us that happened. And so I called him and reached out to him, and he just said, I don't care what it is, I'll be there, you know. And I thought that was really cool. And then I called Eddie Harsh, who was the keyboard player in the Crows, and he said the same thing. And what I liked about it was bringing those guys into a different context. So I was touring with my solo band. Bringing Mark and Ed into my band, too, was kind of really, I thought, was a cool experiment, you know, to say the least. So, you know, they came in, and I brought in a couple of singers, and it was just, it was that thing again. We all felt that it was special. And when I left, I went on and finished my tour, and we all just thought it was going to be these 3 shows. You know, we started talking, and we were like, man, why don't we try this? And so we, you know, formed a band and just said, let's book a show and see what happens. And that's how it was. New York sold out in 20 minutes. We did 3 more shows that sold out in 20 minutes, and we were like, oh, well, let's do this, you know. And we booked a tour, and then we remembered, last year, you know, when our first show was recorded, let's take that and do something with it. And one thing after the other. So I thought it was really cool, you know, what I like about it is natural progression. And then, you know, that's pretty much it. And as we toured, you know, we kind of felt like we could do things right for once. So, you know, sort of the trappings that bands fall into with success and with, you know, being young. I was 19 when I made Shake Your Moneymaker, so we were kids. And, you know, ultimately, those kinds of things grow into, you know, it can be tough, let's just say. And this time we're pretty vigilant about maintaining it, being positive and, you know, not going down that road and talking to one another and not sitting in the back of the bus bitching about each other. And those are really good elements, and we can control that. And, you know, all of that positivity adds to, I think, this creative flow that's happening.
And you kind of did it the old school way, too. You guys released that live album, but then you went out, you did some touring, did some shows, and then you went and did a new album that comes out August 10th, High Water 1. That's kind of how they did it in the old days. Bands like Zeppelin and stuff. They went out and they toured, and then they went in and did the album.
Well, I mean, we became a band, you know. To me, it was important to go out there and learn how to be a band together. I mean, you know, we had all played together in different contexts, but, you know, to play together, you know, as a single unit, you need to get out and play, and that's what we did. You know, we went out all last year, did 80 shows or something, and really became this band. And by the end of it, we were ready to go in and make this record.
What was the process of writing that album? Did you guys all kind of bring in items, or did you just start from scratch?
Well, you know, Mark, John, and I were the songwriters on this one. And we, you know, I had a ton of stuff. I just have had stuff, you know, for years and some brand new stuff. And to me, I was like, well, let's throw everything on the table and see if it speaks to us, and then we'll kind of go from there. So I had a bunch of stuff. Mark had some stuff. John had some stuff. And we just sat together in January and just really worked it out, honed it to about I don't know, 35 songs or pieces. And then when we went into the studio, we kind of peeled away a little bit more, but we wound up recording about 29 things for 2 records. And, that's pretty much how it happened. And some songs I wrote, the whole song, some songs I wrote with John, some songs Mark wrote by himself, some songs Mark wrote with John, and vice versa. And, and it was just this, it was really open. None of us added anything if it wasn't needed. It's like, oh man, there's a song on the record called Sister Moon that John and Mark wrote. And I'm like, I don't need to do anything to this. This thing's great. It's one of my favorite songs, so that's just kind of how we took the whole thing.
I'm talking to Rich Robinson from the Magpie Salute. Their new album comes out August 6th called High Water 1. It's been quite that journey. So on August 10th, that's kind of a big day for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's when we really step into ourselves, and that's what everyone's really looking forward to.
Big tour this summer out with Government Mule and the Avett Brothers hitting Tinley Park, a Hollywood Casino Amphitheater on August 25th. That's got to be pretty exciting to go out with those guys.
Yeah, that's going to be cool. I mean, I think some of Government Mule's first shows were opening for the Crows in the 90s, so it's kind of cool to be able to, go out there and play, and play with these bands that, I've known forever. I remember in 1990, when one of the first MTV Unplugged, the Allman Brothers were there. We were doing our first one too, and that's when we met Warren. We've known him forever, and so that's a really cool thing. We're also doing some shows with Blackberry Smoke, and then we're headlining and playing festivals. So we're kind of running the gamut this year.
You look at the history of your music. How do you decide what you're going to play?
Well, just kind of take it from day to day. You know what I mean?
Are you going to switch it up a lot?
Yeah, we switch it up every night. Last year we went out and we, played, I don't know, we pulled from over 200 songs. It wound up being about 220 songs. And we just kept rotating. Every night we changed the set. To me, changing sort of the running order of a show or a sequence on a record or whatever it may be, you can bring so much dynamic to what you're doing musically. You create these shows every night. You can keep your band agile. You know what I mean?
Right.
But also fans, with the Crows, people followed us around. They would go to, there's people that have been to 500 shows, and so with other bands, or with this band, that's no different. There's a lot of people, that come to a lot of different shows, and they want to come see what it is, how it differs every night. And that's what's important to me. It also keeps us on our toes as a band and keeps it relevant and interesting.
I'm talking to Rich Robinson from the Magpie Salute. Their new album, High Water 1, comes out August 10th. Now, when you're putting together the set list, is there a formula? Like you take it, okay, this era, this from this album, and you kind of switch it up that way? Or is it just random, what flows better with this song and that song?
What sounds good, I have a master song list of these 200 songs or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, well, this is, on this tour, this record will be the focal point. High Water 1 will be the focal point. And then we get to bring in all of these different elements to sort of enhance that, So it could be anything. It could be solo works, Crow songs, cover tunes. And that's how we build the set. So it's kind of like every morning you wake up, it's a different day. This is what kind of speaks to us at this time. So this is the set list.
And it's almost like making your very own mixtape every night.
Exactly.
Which is fun. And it's fun for the fans to be able to experience that. And you never know what you're going to see night to night.
Exactly. And that's what keeps it fresh. And that's what, we're here to play. And that's why they call it playing. You know what I mean? Like, just to get out there and just do it. It's just, there's something really cool and fun and exciting about that.
A couple years ago, I saw you with Bad Company, and boy, that was really cool to see you up there with those guys. What was that experience like?
That was cool. I met Paul a few months before that tour. The Experience Music Project in Seattle was honoring Jimmy Page. And so they flew me out there to be part of, to sort of pay a tribute to Jimmy. And it was funny because I made John Hogg go with me. I'm like, look, I'm not going to sing those songs. You're going to come sing these. And he's like, I don't want to sing these songs to Jimmy. You know, I'm like, he's great. And Paul Rogers was there. And it was cool. I mean, it was a band with Duff McKagan and, you know, was on bass. And, you know, Kim from Soundgarden and Chris Novoselic was on bass and as well on some songs. And, you know, Jerry from Alice in Chains and Rick Nielsen and all these people that came together, and it was cool. It was just a eclectic bunch of people to play, basically to honor Jimmy. And Paul Rogers was there, and he asked me to play on a couple of those Firm songs, and I was like, yeah, all right, you know. And he was cool, a sweet guy, sang unbelievably, and that was it. We met and played and went on our way. But then a few months later, he called and said, look, Mick can't do the tour. Would you fill in for the American leg? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the chance to play with Simon and Paul from Free, which was one of my all-time favorite bands, was like, you know, that's it. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, yeah. And to be able to play those songs, you know, those epic songs.
Exactly.
Well, congratulations on the new album coming out August 10th, High Water 1, August 25th, Hollywood Casino Amphitheater in Tenley Park with Government Mule and the Evitt Brothers. Rich Robinson from the Magpie Salute, thank you so much for taking the time today.
You too. I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's Rockford's home for classic rock, 96.7, The Eagle.